Does your gaming PC have a sad, dangly power cable going to the graphics card? Sapphire has the answer. It's named PhantomLink. We saw it at Computex nearly a year ago, and now we have our hands on the technology. This is the graphics card, this is the matching motherboard, and the magic feature is that contact there. And of course, the motherboard has to have the corresponding part. So let's show you what it's all about. A conventional AMD graphics card such as this ASRock Radeon RX 9070 XT, you'll note this is the special Monster Hunter Wilds edition, and here is the graphics card, still with the protective plastic in place because I haven't got round to using it yet. Anywho, the power for this graphics card comes through two PCI Express cables in the conventional place, exactly as you'd expect. So you install the graphics card and the cables either go like that or like that, and this is entirely familiar to us. By contrast, Sapphire did something very clever with their power connections on their 9070s. They called it stealth, and the reason is the cable is stealthy. We have a magnetically attached backplate, and then the power connection and the RGB are on the back of the graphics card. So if you have a vertical GPU, the cable is almost entirely out of sight. If it's horizontal and you route things carefully, it's pretty much entirely out of sight. It's a really nice idea. The cable here is not the conventional PCI Express cables, but instead is a 12 volt high power, such as we typically see on NVIDIA 50 series and 40 series. This is an MSI Ventus 3X RTX 4090, and there you see the connection in the conventional position. So the cable that powers this graphics card will also power a Sapphire 9070. So Sapphire has their 9070. With the stealth connection. So what on earth is PhantomLink all about? As you can see, PhantomLink entirely removes the power cable from the graphics card. Instead, the 12 volt high power connection is on your motherboard. And you can understand that there is a bridge between that power connection and the extra slot that's in line with the PCI Express connector. This will be fairly obvious to you, but you can, if you choose, install a regular graphics card in this motherboard. I've tested with this RTX 4090, and of course it means that the power then connects to the graphics card, which negates the point of the PhantomLink entirely. But the motherboard does support conventional graphics cards, which is just as well because there aren't very many PhantomLinks out there. And for that matter, if we take the PhantomLink graphics card and we pull, we can remove the magic piece of hardware, and now this graphics card can plug into a regular motherboard, and you'll need to connect to the stealth connector on the back of the graphics card. So essentially both the motherboard and the graphics card have got extra technology built in, which gives you more options. Stealth plus PhantomLink. We'll take a quick look at the package that comes with the motherboard, then we'll dive into the specification. The box is perfectly smart. Inside the lid of the box, we have a quick start guide to how do you install an M.2 SSD. That's useful. Cardboard tray that would obviously contain the motherboard. We have a paper guide, and then in the bottom, a handful of accessories. Information about Wi-Fi, that's just regulation stuff, Wi-Fi antennae, and a couple of SATA cables. I think we can agree that's the absolute minimum you're going to get with a modern motherboard. So let's look at the specification of the hardware and see what's included there. There are two versions of the Sapphire Nitro X870E PhantomLink, and the version we're reviewing is the Polar Edition, which means it is white in colour. The CPU socket is AMD AM5 and it supports processors from the AMD Ryzen 7000, 8000 and 9000 families. The chipset is an AMD X870E and the DDR5 memory support goes up to 8400 if you overclock, the 4 slots supporting up to 256GB in total. The VRMs are in a 16+2+1 configuration. Those VRMs are by Monolithic Power and rated at 90 amps. The VRM controller is also by Monolithic Power. The main graphics slot is PCI Express Gen 5x16 and you can see it has support for PhantomLink. The other two slots are PCI Express Gen 4x16 mechanically, but they run at ×4. For storage we have two M.2 PCI Express Gen 5s and two M.2 PCI Express Gen 4s along with 4 SATA connectors. On the rear I/O panel we have two USB 4s which are Type-C and run up to 40 gigabits per second, and we have 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type-A's which are rated at 10 gigabits per second. There are also 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A's rated at 5 gigabits per second on the rear I/O and 2 USB 2s. Internal headers for front panel connections, we have a USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 rated at 20 gigabits per second, that's Type-C, a header for a pair of USB 3.2 Gen 1s, and 2 headers that support 4 USB 2s. The audio is Realtek ALC897, the Ethernet is Realtek 5 gigabit, and the wireless is Wi-Fi 7 with Bluetooth 5.4. Around the board we have 5 PWM headers, 3 ARGB headers, and 2 12-volt RGB headers. The form factor is ATX and it's an 8-layer PCB. And when we look on the back of the board we see an aluminium backplate which looks fairly smart, but when you remove the backplate we see the board has been printed. It's something of a shame that most people will never even see this feature. When I received this motherboard, the BIOS that was installed dated from late last year, sometime in November. I ran into a couple of teething problems with the motherboard, very minor things, and asked Sapphire if they had an updated BIOS and was sent this version, which dates from January. And I've just received another new BIOS. Apparently this one is really fresh. So let's have a look at the update process, shall we? The BIOS file comes as a zipped archive and it contains a number of files including a PDF, which tells you that you have to determine which family of processors you're running, either Ryzen 8000 or Ryzen 7000/9000, choose the appropriate file, rename that file, put it on a flash drive, and then you can update the BIOS. Alternatively, you can do this. Now I'm not saying that the procedure in that rather terrifying PDF is incorrect, but doesn't this just make more sense? And why is this process not included in that document? You can either use BIOS flashback before the system's running, or once the system's running, update from within the BIOS, and I know which option I prefer. While the update process continues, let me point out these huge buttons. Enabling resizable bar is a single click. You'll note the other button there which is also lit. That's to enable XMP or Expo. As we know, Sapphire doesn't have anything to do with Intel. They're AMD all the way. Nothing to do with NVIDIA either for that matter. And the reason that XMP even gets a mention is because Sapphire doesn't make these motherboards themselves. They come out of Shenzhen, I forget the OEM's name, it's something like J&B. The point is this motherboard, this family of motherboards, is not made by ASRock Asus MSI Gigabyte. It's another company entirely. And that's why this BIOS screen, which I really like, it looks completely different to the BIOS setup screens in the motherboards with which we are familiar. And I applaud this change. Setting a manual fan curve is an absolute doddle. You will notice there is no option for telling the system whether you have a DC powered or PWM controlled fan. The system here has just identified these fans without any trouble whatsoever, but every so often we do run into motherboards that have trouble identifying fans correctly. You put it on auto and it gets it wrong. All I have to work on are the fans on this Fantex cooler, and they've been no trouble whatsoever. I have to say it is possible that some fans will cause an issue. Based on my sample of these 3 fans, I've got a 100% success rate. Switching the BIOS out of simple mode to advanced mode, you have all the tools that you require on offer, but the options are fairly limited. Essentially, I regard this BIOS screen as a good way of checking the status of the hardware you've got installed, and then use AMD's Ryzen Master to set PBO or to use Curve Optimizer to tune your processor. I don't regard this BIOS as a particularly good way of overclocking your CPU. The final piece of setup is to use Sapphire's TriXX-M software. We're familiar with Trix from graphics cards. The M is for motherboard. TriXX-M makes sense, and you can use that for RGB control. The only piece of RGB on the system we're actually controlling is in the I/O shield, which is under MOS on the software. The other RGB headers aren't connected. The graphics card is just running on auto, that's on the rotating rainbow marquee, and I'm using G.Skill's own software to control the memory. Even though RAM is shown in TriXX-M, it doesn't actually control this memory. So it's G.Skill's separate piece of software controlling the memory. The graphics card's on auto. If I hooked up an ARGB cable, I could control it. It's just this lighting here, but it does look very smart. Okay, a quick word about performance and then we can move on to my conclusions. We're only showing a few charts here because this motherboard supports our Ryzen 7 9850X 3D very nicely, and we're comparing to figures from our recent review of the Ryzen 9 9950X 3D where I tested the same processor on an ASRock X870E Tai-Chi. In Geekbench 6 multi-core, we see the Sapphire is very slightly behind the ASRock, but we're talking 200 points out of 19,000. It's a similar story in Geekbench 6 single core where the Sapphire scores about 30 points lower than the ASRock. So again, the performance is very similar. And in Cinebench 2026 multi-core, the scores are very similar, and we see the processor running at 5.3 GHz on both motherboards. On the ASRock it's drawing 138 watts, and on the Sapphire PhantomLink 135 watts. And we come to my conclusions. What do I think about this Sapphire PhantomLink motherboard? And I suppose as it's effectively a pair of products, the PhantomLink graphics card. PhantomLink's a very neat and clever idea, but also arguably it's fairly pointless. And when you look closely at the motherboard, you'll understand what I mean. Because of course, you're doing away with one connection, the connection to the graphics card, which Sapphire has already worked out really well. Their stealth connection is absolutely excellent. But every other connection is still on the front of the motherboard, because this isn't a Project Zero or Project Stealth or BTF motherboard. It's a conventional motherboard, and it has an extra piece of cleverness specifically to feed power to the matching graphics card. We know the reason for this. It's because the technology behind Project Zero, BTF and Stealth is by Maingear in America. This has been true for many years, and that's why it's taken so long for this technology to come through. You'll note ASRock hasn't bought into this particular technology. Clearly it's a question of money. How many units will you sell? How much does it cost? And Sapphire is a very small player in the motherboard market. So their decision is perfectly rational. It makes you wonder almost, why have they bothered with PhantomLink as Stealth is so bloomin' good? So we have to take the product as it stands in front of us. The motherboard is going to go on sale, we're told, at £319.99 including VAT, which is clearly carrying something of a premium. You could probably get a comparable X870E for £50 less, but it is a very neat X870, good quality hardware, Wi-Fi 7, 5 gigabit, decent VRMs. It's the graphics card that's the slight kick in the pants, because it's priced at £879.99 Inc. VAT. You can get other 9070 XTs for about £700 at the minute, so it's about £180 premium for the graphics card for PhantomLink, and I'm going to say about 50 quid for the motherboard. And if you don't have both of those parts, PhantomLink is completely irrelevant. So it also follows, unless you're in the market for a 9070 XT and you're desperately keen to get rid of your cables, we're addressing a tiny handful of people. So having said all that, pros and cons. Pros, the good points: PhantomLink is very neat. The quality of the motherboard hardware is very sound. I like the neatness of the BIOS setup screen, that's good. And I applaud the 5 gigabit Ethernet and the Wi-Fi 7 networking. Cons, the negatives: PhantomLink adds a hefty premium to both motherboard and graphics card. Secondly, logically the connection should be at the back of the board. And thirdly, the accessory pack is almost non-existent. It's the bare minimum. The score, I've been around this. I'll name it. I spoke to James. I said, James, what do you think? And he said, well, that's pointless. I thought, harsh, not wrong. My missus, who's seen this product, because obviously I can't discuss products under NDA, and she likes it. She thinks it's an 8 out of 10 and worth buying. I think technically very clever. In terms of the market it's addressing, it's about 3 people. So that's a spread. So I've landed on worth considering and 7 out of 10. But in this instance, I really wish this wasn't a review as such. I wish I didn't have to finally give a score and an award, because most of you just aren't in the market for this product. But 1 or 2 of you are going to look at this and go, that's neat and I like it. But that's what I'm doing. I'm colours to the mast. 7 out of 10 and worth considering.